Welcome to Just Love Live. I am your host for today, Beatriz Diaz Taveras, and I am the Executive Director for Catholic Charities Community Services. Thank you for tuning in to our monthly show where we will discuss major issues facing everyday New Yorkers, from housing and food insecurity to eviction prevention and workforce development. We will also look at how Catholic Charities of New York and the greater human services community is responding to these needs and providing help to the most vulnerable among us. Our first segment will focus on the upsurge of immigration legal fraud and scams targeting the newly arrived immigrants and how Catholic Charities Immigrant and Refugee Services Division is working to inform the community. Our second segment will focus on the services provided by Catholic Charities at St. Teresa's Welcome Center to asylum seekers. Our first guest is Liz Markuci, the Director of Hotline Services Training and Policy Development in the Division of Immigrant and Refugee Services at Catholic Charities Community Services. Before joining Catholic Charities, she trained and recruited thousands of lawyers to represent immigrants pro bono, and she led a program that increased access to health care. In 2014, Liz received the New York City Bar Association's Legal Services Award for her leadership in representing immigrant youth. Please welcome Elizabeta Markuci, or as we know, Liz. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you, Beatrice, for having me. I really appreciate being here today.
So we want to talk about the hotline and what are the services. So can you tell us a little bit about the hotline? It's called the New Americans Hotline.
Yes, the New Americans Hotline serves New Yorkers from all across the state and sometimes even from outside of the state with lots of different issues, hundreds of issues every month. So we talk to maybe 35,000 to 40,000 people every year. We talk to them about citizenship, how they can become citizens, how to sponsor family members, how to become authorized to work, and also how to seek asylum or safety from whatever country they were being persecuted in before they came to the U.S.
How many languages are spoken on the hotline?
Well, at the moment we have agents who speak, or counselors, we like to call them hotline counselors, who speak about 6 or 7 different languages, French, Fulani, Spanish, Bengali, English, Haitian Creole, as well as using interpretation services that is available to us to speak in up to 200 different languages.
Interesting. Which language is the most access right now?
Right now we get calls mostly from Spanish speakers and often English speakers, or I think those are the two biggest.
Okay. So we have been focusing in on immigration fraud.
Yes.
So tell me, why is it important that we let folks know about immigration fraud and the scams that there are?
Immigration fraud's always been an issue. It's something, unfortunately, as a lawyer for the last 2 decades, I wish I had seen go away, and I have not. I think in this moment in time, we're seeing a huge uptick, double the amount. And I think that is happening because there are more people seeking services at the same time at a quicker pace with additional insecurities. And so trying to get work permits in order to have stable housing and different things. And so that kind of desperate moment and creates an opportunity for people to trick people and scam them and cheat them.
What are some of the scams that you've heard of on the hotline?
Oh, wow. It's pretty heartbreaking, but some of the simpler scams, we see people waiting outside the courts and someone will approach you and say, oh, do you want to get inside the court? If you pay me $40, I'll help you bypass the line, because people are lining up from 6 a.m. or earlier, even before the doors open. They might be approached in shelters or in other places where people are giving advice or services, and they'll be approached by someone else maybe who is also seems to be a migrant or a newcomer to the city, I prefer, and say, oh, for this much money we'll get you a work permit, and they'll be asked to pay cash, and then that person might disappear or set them up with someone who's going to scam them. But we're also hearing about more folks who are looking for services in different places. You know, the anxiety of needing help and knowing that all of these things are connected leads people to go to Facebook. And you have people that pose as lawyers, pretend to be, someone trusted, pretend to be government officials. And so that in those cases, we've seen people scammed up to $15,000 or heard from them.
Oh my. Is there any remedy for them once they've been scammed?
That's a complicated question that I think over time, the remedy is those people are maybe put out of business, or even I heard today someone was arrested out of state, and it takes hundreds of people to come forward over a period of many years sometimes for law enforcement to be able to put together a case and prosecute someone and stop them from doing what they're doing.
Oh. Do you have a sense of why people sometimes fall victims to these scams?
Yeah, the desperation is one, and sort of the pressure to find a solution really quickly. And I can understand that. And, if I'm trying to get a job to feed my family or pay for rent or do basic things, and someone's offering me an opportunity when I might have to wait for a trusted organization to help other people that, got in line first, so to speak. So I might not feel like I have a month to wait. And those are probably, that desperation is definitely one of the issues. I also think technology is making it much easier for people to look like they're legitimate, right? Pretend to be a lawyer they saw on television, right? And so hopefully no one's setting up an account with my face on it after today. But I think, not knowing where to go, the laws are very complicated. And in the last few years, we've really seen a lot of changes with temporary programs and temporary solutions that aren't really clear. And so when people don't know where to get trusted help or might have to wait longer than they can, I think those are the big factors that I think result in fraud.
So Liz, you mentioned technology.
Yeah.
So how do you think the use of AI has really augmented this world?
I think that different types of technology allows you to pretend to simulate a judge during a video conference, right? I think also during the pandemic, there was a movement from in-person hearings in the courts to video conferences. You also have a really a way that people are maybe copying what looks like an official seal from the government's website that maybe isn't the right kind of eagle or the right color or whatever the right spelling of the website. And so they use this technology to make it look like they're an official government place. And so you might be charging people hundreds of dollars for forms that are free on the government's actual website. So if you go to uscis.gov, you can get application forms for free. If you go to usscis.gov, to the average person, they look almost the same. And
wow.
Yeah, and then they'll sell the forms. I'm giving that a very simple example, but it's a variation of that.
Well, no, that's a very good tip. So how can people avoid being scammed?
I think the first piece of advice is I would not pay cash. And I think that's really hard for this population in particular, when you don't necessarily have bank accounts or the ability to pay by check. I would not pay cash if at all possible, or really do a lot of work in figuring out, is this person the real deal? Is there, can I get a receipt? And I think even the online ways that people are paying for services now through Venmo or Zelle, or the different ways that you can wire money from your phone, I would also be extra suspicious of those payment opportunities. Really, there are so many tips that I would like to give people if we have time today, so I can keep offering options, look up whether someone is a lawyer. I would be very wary of travel agents, reminding people that notarios are not lawyers here. Maybe in other countries they are. So people, are offering help, but then there's a fee, and so be suspicious. I would be suspicious of lawyers or pretend lawyers who are bragging that I know people at immigration, I can get your paperwork done. Or I win 99.9% of my cases. If you look at the asylum approval rates, maybe you don't, no one's ever done that. I'm a lawyer, so I do look at those. Most asylum cases aren't approved. There's 50 to 75% of cases that are not approved. So someone who has a 99.9% success rate, I'd be like, really? So put on your skepticism hat, I guess.
So Liz, what's the number? What's the phone number for the New Americans Hotline?
The number for the New Americans Hotline is 1-800-566-7636.
Repeat that slower.
Okay. 1-800-566-7636.
Excellent. I know you have a couple of other hotlines that are also answered. If in a quick 30 seconds or so, can you tell us a little bit about the other hotlines that you work with?
Sure. So I think the first hotline that I work for is the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, and that is a city-funded program that offers services, referral services and information, and for New York City residents. And also the third hotline is for, it's called LOPC. It's for custodians of unaccompanied minors. And so it's an informational hotline that helps folks across the country understand what the obligations are in court for young people.
Wow, thank you so much. So thank you, Elizabeta, or Liz, as I like to say, for such an informative conversation. For our viewers, don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Catholic Charities Community Service provides asylum seeker support at St. Teresa's Church with social workers and case managers who create a welcoming environment for the asylum seekers. They provide assistance that includes social service, access to good, advocacy, and general support. Please welcome Tessa Graham, who's the supervisor at St. Teresa's, and Betty Gomez, who's one of our case managers. Thank you so much for being at our show today.
Thank you for having us. Okay.
So Tessa, tell me a little bit about St. Teresa's and what's happening there today.
So St. Teresa's is like a haven. When families arrive at St. Teresa's, the first thing that is on our priority list is to welcome them, right, with open arms, right? And have them understand that this is a safe space where they can express, right, their experiences, that they can come in and they can not only talk to us, but have a safe space to be able to express what it is that they have. They also share that once they arrive there, they've actually said, this is the first time that we feel so welcomed, right? So it's a place where we kind of are proud that we stand out the way we do, because it's exactly what we want. We want families to be able to feel safe and feel heard. And so that's what we offer among, the other services that we provide. That's our priority.
What kind of services do you provide at St. Teresa's?
So we provide services that include registering children for schools, referring families to the nearby hospital within the community to apply for medical insurance, families that have children under the age of 5 years old that apply for WIC. We also help families with the application for NYC ID. And then throughout the planning of services that we give them, we also give them a folder. It's like a blue folder. And that folder helps them to identify the goals that have been set for them, but not only that, to have that tangible, lead into, this is the goal that I already achieved. I'm going to go to the next goal. And so it's something that they have in their hands that they return back to us, and we together then follow up with them. And so with all the services that we also offer services regarding referrals for families to begin the asylum application. We offer referrals for mental health services. And so, we offer really, really good services for all of the families that come and individuals.
Where are the asylum seekers coming from? What countries? And how many do you see every day?
So the asylum seekers, they come from all over, right? They come from Venezuela. They come from Mexico. They come from Congo. They come from, we had a family that came from Iran. So they come from all over, right? And when they reach us, we make sure that we provide the same level of services for everyone that arrives.
What are some of the stories that have touched you the most?
The stories that have touched me the most is where families come in and they talk about having to leave some family members behind, and how now they need to look forward in building a future in order for their families to then try to, join in and be reunited with their families. So that's one of the saddest stories that I've heard. Another story that I've heard is where families come in and they say, I thought this was going to be different. This was not what I expected. This is really hard. Like, where do I go from here? And so to hear the story and to be able to understand each family in their own unique ways and find the building blocks that you can identify with them and say, listen, this is where we are. This is where we're going to get. And you're not on this road alone. We're going to help you get to where you have to go.
So you provide that support to them.
Absolutely.
Because, unfortunately, I imagine that they all think New York, the streets are paved with gold, because that's what they heard. And then they get here and they find another reality.
Right. And we let them know everything is a process. You getting here was a process, and look, you're here. Mm-hmm. Right? We're going to set the goals for you, and we're going to target the goals one by one. So it's one step at a time. So we're able to just work on the hope that they bring, but we're able to identify ways to kind of build on that hope.
Mm-hmm. So Betty,
yes.
I know you were at the Catholic Center, was it in June of 2022 when it all started? That's right. Tell me a little bit about your experience at that time there.
That, to tell you the truth, was quite overwhelming at the time, because we really didn't have the notion of what we were expecting until they came. And on July 18th, I'll never forget it, 2022. My colleague and I were both there. Usually we'd see 1, 2, 3, 4 clients. And all of a sudden, we had 18 for her, 19 for me that day, with experiences that we had never been exposed to. Because so many came, I started taking groups of men, because they were in the majority men at that time. And so I would take, one of our conference rooms holds a lot of people, and I began with 9 and 11 men at a time in order to be able to process them throughout the day. We were seeing maybe 90 clients a day, each one of us, each one of us. And there are so many stories. At that time, the ones that came had been through the Darien Gap, the majority, and they had walked. They walked all the way to New York, and to the border, and then they came on these buses that were leaving them on different street corners. You would ask them. There was no Port Authority receival at that time. It was on First Avenue or by the river. They'd always say, by a big body of water, and it was the river over there. And they came with tattered clothing, hungry, and most of them, a lot of them without shoes, or shoes that were in great disrepair. But to the question I always asked them, how did you survive this experience? It was really arduous. They would all tell me the same thing, that God had allowed him to get to New York. And they were mostly not religious people, because they're coming from communist countries. There was no religion. They knew something greater than themselves had brought them all the way to the city. And they had great expectations, which to what you said, the streets paved with gold, which is mostly what most migrants think when they get here, only to have a rude awakening. But I work with really big-hearted people that wear their hearts on their shoulders and are full of empathy. And we were able to serve the hundreds of people a day that came to 1011 First Avenue with the same grace and the same love of humanity that we dealt with before that with just our residents, with our neighbors. It has opened a world of it for me. For me, it's been an awesome experience and continues to be so every day.
So you were telling me earlier the story about the pink Crocs. Oh.
Well, the first gentleman I had, I remember him like today. I actually see his visage. He came in with a t-shirt that was full of holes and very bad, his pants were in disrepair. But I noticed that he had these very huge pink Crocs on. And after I sat with him and he cried, these men cried. Lots of, all day long, men cried because of the experience, because of what they had witnessed in the Darien Gap, because they had left their families behind. It was just, we had to give them space for them to be able to express themselves. And after that, we had a conversation. And in the conversation, I asked him, one of the things I asked him, what do you mostly need right now? And he told me, well, I'm satisfied with these Crocs. I found them in the garbage can. I started looking because my shoes broke on me when I got off the bus. But if I could have a pair of shoes that perhaps weren't pink and that would fit me, I would be really happy. And this is really when we, at 1011, from the top to the bottom, everyone, without exception, pitched in. What we didn't have, it was found. And every day there were more and more supplies. But we also had great assistance from every area of our organization. They came from everywhere. We had from Westchester and those that came from Frank Courtwright's section of the world there, from our St. Cecilia's. Everyone came to pitch in. I will never forget that experience. I have never seen a corporation come together like they did at that time. It was amazing, and I have plenty of stories to tell because there was a lot of crying, but there was also a lot of joy from those same people when they left. They felt that there was hope. Mm-hmm. There was hope in a future for them.
Mm-hmm. Which is how we provide help and create hope. But tell me a little bit about the volunteers, because I know we could not have done this work without the volunteers. Tessa?
Yes, well, we have volunteers that come to St. Teresa's, and the process of them coming to us is that they enter the system, and they go into the system, and they register to volunteer. When the volunteers arrive, they get a tour, and we explain the services that we provide, and they're just so happy. When they come in one way, and when the volunteers leave, they're like, this was amazing, this has changed my life. Some of the things we ask them to do is we have a short intake process that families go through, and the volunteers explain it in the language of the families that arrive. They also build strollers for pregnant women that arrive. And so, just chipping in. The little bit that they do goes such a long way. And then when they leave, they feel so grateful, right? To be able to have gotten the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of the families. Mm-hmm.
Betty, tell me a little bit about the volunteers at the Catholic Center during that time.
They were wonderful, and I don't even know where they came from. But every day we had 10, 12, 15 people that just showed up, even some of the neighbors from the area. What can I do today? How can I help you today? They would make the little lunch bags that we had. They would put bags together with whatever T-shirts and supplies. Sometimes there were toys, many teddy bears. And these volunteers just made life so much easier for us. They made copies, as many as thousands of copies. They directed people. They actually took people, at that time we tried to organize because there were so many people on the elevators trying to accompany them.
Oh. So I do want to give the Catholic Charities helpline number, which is 1-888-744-7900. If anyone needs help, please do call. I want to say a special thanks to you, our guests, for sharing their expertise on how to protect ourselves from immigration legal fraud and how asylum seekers can be welcomed to New York compassionately and helpful. Thank you for the services you have provided in stressful and difficult situations. Catholic Charities provides help and creates hope for those in need year-round. Please consider getting involved by volunteering or donating or contacting us if you need support. This is Just Love Live's final episode. I want to thank the great and professional team here at Manhattan Neighborhood Network. It has truly been a pleasure working with you all. Thank you for watching and have a good day.